Now it's time to move on to my favorite subject as an engineer myself. Let me share. Yeah, I think Jonathan already shared.
Okay, good afternoon. Now we are going to talk about space. When we mention space, and people think about astronaut, okay? But the space travel we are going to talk about today is for everyone. Could you go to the next page? Now, let's say if you want to travel to the sky, okay? Then you go to the airport. You take an airplane and fly inside the Earth's atmosphere. But travel to space is something different. Travel to space is to fly above the atmosphere and into the vastness of space. It is in everybody's dream. So, in the future, if you want to travel to the space, you need to go to the spaceport. Next page. So from the spaceport, you have some options, okay, in the future. For example, you can take high altitude balloon, lofting about 100 kilometers above the ground. Then you can take the pictures, you can have beautiful views of the Earth. Or, next page, you can take a space elevator, high altitude elevators, okay? That will take you to 300 or 400 kilometers above the Earth to the space station, as shown in the next page. Then, there will be a space shuttle. Okay, you can take the space shuttle to go to the hotels on the moon. Next page. Or to the parks on the Mars. Next page. So there's a lot of opportunities in the future, probably in your generation, in your children's generation, and I'm very positive, very certain for that your grandchildren's generation, that will be true. Okay. But the travel to the stars is very challenging. Next page. I say challenge is because based on our current understanding of science, of physics, and the current available technology, engineering, we are not able to do that yet. So it's still in our dream. It all depends on our future generations to make breakthroughs in science and engineering to make this dream come true. So this is more distant towards the future, travel to the stars. Next page. However, currently there's 5 or 6 companies, okay, real companies, they are helping us to make travel to the space a reality, okay, in this generation, or in your children's generation. Those companies including Virgin Galactic, okay, or Virgin Orbit, okay, we have one speaker from Virgin Orbit to talk about today, and SpaceX, okay, and Blue Origin, and Boeing's, and Orion Span, and CESASC, of course. Okay, the CESASC rules is to inspire you guys, okay, to learn science and technology, to build up skills, to work in your careers in space travel. So, next page. And today's main thing is space travel in the past and space travel in the future. And we are going to also talk about space economy and careers, to make a careers in space. So next page, I'm going to introduce today's speaker. Today's speaker is Monica Jin. Monica holds a bachelor and master degrees in electrical engineering from University of Southern California. She also had a system engineering certificate from Caltech, California Institute of Technology, and an MBA degree from Wharton School. Currently, Monica is a senior director for strategic and customer experience at Virgin Orbit. So let's welcome Monica. Okay, next page.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this convention today. It is my pleasure to speak with you today about space and all the exciting things that's happening in the space industry today. I had the opportunity to look through all the smiley faces on the screen earlier during the earlier presentation part, and I'm really excited to see that in attendance today, there are audience from as young as I think maybe 6 years old, from what I can see on screen, all the way to the 90s. That meant a lot, and I hope you all take a little bit of something away from dreams and how we'll see where we're going and where dreams may come true in the next 20, 30 years. So since we have so many kids, and I want to show you this picture to take you a little bit back to my childhood. This picture reminded me a lot of when I was dreaming when I was a kid. So this picture was taken on the day when our sister company, Virgin Galactic, became the first space company to go IPO on the New York Stock Exchange last year. And it's my favorite picture because it represented so much to me. It brings me back to the time when I was a little girl in Taiwan and dreaming about space. But that dream seemed at the time so far away. I would have never imagined that today I get to travel the world, meeting with industry leaders and to work to advance space for humanity today. It's living my dream, or even having the opportunity to speak to you today about space. But the story of Virgin Galactic started way back when in 2004, when Spaceship One, you see here, won the $10 million X Prize. It was a turning point when private capital started to invest in space companies for space travel. And then 5 years later, Spaceship Two took the first flight from Mojave and became Virgin Galactic's flagship space vehicle. This will start to take private tours to space very soon. But really the dream started a long time ago in 1960s. We probably all remember, or for younger ones have seen on TV, when Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon. It really made human presence in space not only a dream, but became a reality. And since then, since we're talking about Hollywood, there's been a lot of TVs and movies made about space, like Star Wars and Star Trek. In the 70s, the program continued. NASA started to invest in space shuttle program to really develop something that's reusable, a spaceship that's reusable. And then for the next 30 years, a whole family of space shuttles was transporting both astronauts and cargo to the International Space Station you see on the left. And recently, you've probably seen the news, the space shuttle is aging. It was supposed to be retired by 2024, just in time for NASA to return to the moon. But I think I recently heard that it got extended to 2030. So we will still have the station with us for a while. But to get to space, we need to figure out first how to get away from this Earth. The little thing called gravity, it takes a lot of power to escape Earth. In the 1957s, it was the first time when Russia sent up the first satellite called Sputnik. And that ignited the space race between the United States and Russia back then. Since then, a lot of different nations and space agencies have developed various large rockets and the rocket programs to send human and cargo satellites into space. But not until in 2002, someone called Elon Musk came along and started a company called SpaceX. SpaceX in 2008 was successfully launched the very first privately funded small rocket called Falcon 1 into space. So together, when we mentioned a little earlier about the X Prize, remember, and the success of SpaceX, really many people consider that launched a new space race for private space for private investors. And you can see that not only space is getting cool again, and people are taking notice, Hollywood and media are also catching on. I think starting to reflect the time and the excitement of this era. For a very long time, aerospace companies were having trouble attracting young talents. People wanted to go to Silicon Valley and work at companies like Google and Apple and build apps. But since then, we are seeing a lot of the young talents and engineers getting excited about building something for space, inventing something for space, whether it's satellite or spaceship, to send people back into space again. So we're seeing this whole resurgence of excitement that's reflected in popular media today. And very recently, we saw that the United States has announced that it established this United States Space Force. Not only movie was made, Netflix made a comedy about the Space Force. You know, I'm actually pretty excited about it since I'm a Steve Carroll fan. So I think it's a win for geeky engineers like myself. Another one of my favorite show that's showing that space is really going mainstream is currently streaming on Apple TV called For All Mankind. And that is showing where there's a race between US and Russia to build the moon base. And if you think that's it, you'll be wrong. Recently, NASA announced that it's working with Tom Cruise to make a movie from the International Space Station. I really can't complain, you know, and you can see the space is getting really cool now that you have Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt playing sexy astronauts. It's really exciting time right now. And not only that the movies are reflecting the times, but the culture was changing as well, where back in the Apollo program, you can see all the astronauts, they were all white men, came from a military background. Whereas today, on the bottom right, you see the latest class of astronauts, they really more closely reflect the diversity in our society today. And back in 1963, Russia was actually the first country to send a woman into space. Dr. Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman astronaut in space. And since then, many women astronauts have joined her footsteps to become the shuttle commanders or to perform spacewalk. So the culture is shifting, the media is shifting, the technology is moving very quickly forward as well. So the machines back then, you can see, it looks very much like, well, the 60s, lots of buttons, pretty old school technology. Today, the Dragon space capsule that was built by SpaceX was just launched. And you can see from here that it is sexy and slick with touch screen controls. And you can even see an iPad right there next to the astronauts. We are currently going through a privatization of space, where space used to be the domain of governments and only built by government and space agencies. It's being taken over by private companies to perform the same services. So missions like resupply mission to the International Space Station will now be performed by SpaceX and Boeing going forward. NASA announced that we will go back to the moon by 2024, not only just to land there, but they plan to establish a permanent base. The Artemis is another program of NASA's that's really encouraging international collaboration and use it as a stepping stone to get to somewhere further like Mars. SpaceX is busy building large transport system like Starship here so that they can really achieve their dreams of colonizing Mars and building base there. And what about that aging space station we saw earlier? It's supposed to retire by 2030, right? But don't worry, there's a whole group of private engineers and investors now building a new commercial space station that's supposed to come online before the current space station retires. That might even include a space hotel, no joke. So other really interesting projects are space mining. Both private industry and space agencies around the world are currently studying it and have missions to do asteroid mining and space mining so that we can harvest resources from space and be used in space. And there are new prizes like the Google Lunar X Prize that's spurring a whole new generation of lander technologies from private companies, and the large companies are building larger landers to get us back to the moon and land on the moon as well. So it's exciting that, you know, on the Times Magazine, you can see there was a race to the moon between US and Russia, but today they are race to the moon or race to space, but the next space race is really between private companies. And another space race that's happening right now is not really in outer space, but on Earth, where the satellites, which is important infrastructure to support both outer space travel and benefit our lives on Earth, they're getting smaller and cheaper. So to enable that new space small satellite revolution, we created a new company called Virgin Orbit.
Our planet is changing, and so are the ways we explore it, connect it, inspire it, and protect it. The satellites we build to serve humanity from space are growing smaller and less expensive. And that's made the list of satellite builders larger and more diverse. New investment has flooded into the satellite world, and new talent, new inspiration, and new applications as well. But the greatest satellites in the world can't help anyone when they're stuck here on planet Earth. Lacking an affordable, flexible, and responsive ride to space, many small satellites would never get off the ground. But that's all about to change. For 4 years now, Virgin Orbit has been designing, building, and testing a totally new way of launching satellites. A launch service that is best matched to these new, smaller, and more affordable satellites. Virgin Orbit has built a system that can launch on short notice, flying from wherever needed to reach whatever orbit the mission requires. It's a system built on one of the most powerful, proven aircraft of all time, which serves as a flying launch pad, helping deliver precious cargo exactly where it needs to go, exactly when it needs to get there. It's a system that marries tried and true rocket technology with state-of-the-art manufacturing capabilities. All put together by a team with a bold vision, just the right industry experience, and a little bit of a maverick spirit. The small satellites carried by Launcher One will help us better understand and care for our planet and our part of the solar system, connecting us with others across the globe, growing economies, and keeping us safe. Dozens of satellites have already booked their flights on Launcher One, and with an exhaustive testing program nearly complete, Virgin Orbit is poised to launch the small satellite revolution.
So the space economy is really getting revamped, and it's not a new concept. Our lives have been closely tied to the satellite systems. You just didn't know about it. Satellites are getting smaller and cheaper. They're leveraging advancements in consumer electronics, just like computers used to take up a whole room. Now it's in the palm of your hands. Satellite too used to take up a whole entire room. Now could fit on the top of your hands as well. And they used to cost billions of dollars to make, but now they cost millions only. Seem like a large number, but it's really a multiple order of magnitude of reduction. And the next revolution will happen, and when tens of thousands of small satellites will be launched into lower Earth orbit in the next decade. And this is going to create a new communication infrastructure in space. Now, this is really creating jobs and investment opportunities for all levels of value chain. And this intersects with many commercial and defense applications, like getting your Wi-Fi on the airplane, on the train, or tracking ships in your cargo movement, or just getting a better and more accurate weather forecast. So the opportunity is endless. If you're studying engineering today, the opportunity you get to work with and even related to the space industry is so much more than when I was a little kid or when I was in school. I'm so excited for you and your opportunity. You definitely want to take a close look at all the job postings as you're graduating, or just keep updated on what's happening with the news to see if there's something that can get you excited. So in order to launch these tens of thousands of small satellites, we also need a new generation of rockets. Virgin Orbit created this new kind of launch system. You're familiar with the large rocket launching from a vertical launch pad. But what we did was we took a 747, modify it, so that way we can actually launch a much smaller rocket on an airplane. And the size and mobility of this system really allows us to provide launch capability from all over the world and not just tied to one location. Earlier you saw that one of the dreams is having spaceport everywhere around the world. It's actually not a dream, it's becoming reality. We're currently working with UK and Japan to set up spaceports. And there are many, many other countries that are interested in setting up their own spaceport to kickstart their own space economy. So the space race is on. And this time, the space fever is actually global. So while Virgin Orbit, we're conducting our first set of launches from Mojave, California. This is a desert about 2 hours away from Los Angeles. The Virgin Galactic crew, they have moved into their new home in New Mexico. This is Spaceport America. The road to get here was long and actually very hard. Space is hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that you will do as an engineer. And in the process of making the dream come true for normal people like you and I, so we can become astronauts and space tourists, and one day take our trip to space, the Virgin Galactic team had to overcome many obstacles, including losing one pilot in an accident a few years ago. But they carried on, and they decided to stay in and fight. So I'd like to take you back to the day of the first successful space flight made by Spaceship Two. And this is back in December 2018. To experience this emotional day and what it feels like to have your dream come true.
A letter to my grandchildren. My dad, your great-granddad, was an extraordinary man, full of wise words. He would often remind me that life is wonderful, and it is that simple truth which has driven me as I built businesses, raised my family, and embarked upon my many adventures. You are at the very start of life. It is an incredible gift, and it is there for the taking. It will deliver highs and lows, but by living it to the full, by always trying to do the right thing, by keeping a childlike sense of adventure, it will indeed be wonderful. I used to think of space as a destination, but I now realize it's a journey with some amazing milestones along the way. Your lives will be transformed by space, and it will give your generation the planetary perspective on which the future of humanity rests. That we're all in this together, fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. Today we pass the most significant of them all, as our beautiful VSS Unity, along with the hopes and dreams of so many, became the first spaceship built for regular passenger service to put humans into space.
Release. Fire. 30 seconds. Good control. Seconds. 58 seconds. Motor shutdown. 2.8. Right motor burn, everybody. We're going to space, Richard. 264,000 feet. Welcome to space, Unity. Incredible. Check that out. We can see Mexico. Unity, welcome to space. Copy base, $1 million view. Apogee.
Virgin Galactic has shown that when you set off on challenging but important adventures, exceptional people come forward to join the journey. People who are consistently by your side and on your side. People who share your dreams and people who help make them reality.
Rolling to the right. Complete.
As I watch Unity and her brave pilots soar upwards into space today, my vision blurred by tears, I could hear your great-granddad whisper once again in my ear. Life is indeed wonderful.
If you don't remember anything from my talk today, I hope that you remember one thing, and that is dare to dream. Whatever your dream is, no matter how impossible it may seem, work hard and don't give up. And just like this little girl staring at the New York Stock Exchange building, she has a big dream and she'll probably get there someday. And so will you. Sky is no longer the limit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very inspiring. Not only kids, me, learn a lot. Okay, let's take some questions. And if you have a question, please type into the chat box. Okay, there's a lot of questions already. Let me take some early one. Whoa. How about I'm going to take one question from Sarah Xu. Okay, Sarah Xu had a question to Monica. Is space travel accepting private passengers now? How much is a ticket cost?
Yeah, it is. Let's see. If you remember, airline travel used to be very expensive. You and I wouldn't be able to get on an airline. They cost more than first class now. Today, you can get on a Southwest for $100 one way to Vegas or San Francisco. We're about the same place with space travel. It is just starting to take private passengers. For Virgin Galactic, I haven't checked the prices lately, but as of last year, they have more than 600 people signed on, and the ticket price at the time was at $250,000 US.
Wow.
That price is, the goal is to have prices come down, right? Because the initial development cost for any space program is astronomical. But as the space travel or spaceship become more commonplace and there are more trips, so will the cost. And I think another thing to keep in mind is that it's not just about going to space. A lot of these technologies that we're developing today, yes, will be fun. You can pay a lot of money and go to outer space and look back at Earth. But ultimately, you probably have also seen some of the announcements. It's really about point-to-point transportation on Earth. So instead of taking the current technology, the airline, for a 12-hour flight to, where would that get you? Japan or Taiwan? How about a 2-hour flight to Beijing? That's really what a lot of these technologies are working towards. So it's not just about getting to the moon and Mars, but significantly benefiting the cost and the method of travel on Earth.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's, if it's less than, and a certain amount I can afford, I'm going to buy one. Okay. So the second question, okay, let me see. Wow, lots of questions, and the second question I'm going to take from Dan Kai Liu. And so here's a question to Monica. How realistic if we can travel to the Mars and stay there? The real question is when? When do you think?
Wow, if I know this, I'd be a billionaire by now. I think the latest, I'll tell you the company predictions, right? Company like SpaceX, they're looking at the 2030s. If you look back in time, all of the, again, space is hard, so it normally takes longer time to develop the systems than prediction, because you're doing something for the very first time. And it's not just about spaceship getting there. I mean, if you just Google it around, you'll see that SpaceX is doing a lot of testing and making pretty good progress on the spaceship, Starship spaceship that they are planning to use to get to Mars. So you can pretty much monitor that progress there. But it's a lot more than that, right? If you want to go to, let's say, it doesn't have to be Mars, in the middle of Earth somewhere, go camping or build a city, there's infrastructure you have to build. You need to build shelter, you need to grow food. There's so many other support system you have to build and understand, and not to mention the very long trip you have to get there, this human psychology part. So there's really a lot of development that needs to happen. Would it happen? Could it happen? Probably. Someone will figure it out. A lot of smart people working on it. When? I think within our lifetime, but probably not within the next 10 years. Could be 20, could be 30. Just depends on one other important factor is private funding and government funding. If those budgets don't get cut and there's enough sustained excitement and interest and business opportunities, I think it'll happen sooner than later.
Beautiful. I certainly want to see it within my lifetime at least.
I'm looking forward to a vacation on the moon. Personally, I'm a moon fan. It looks like an Earth.
Beautiful. Okay, so and I think due to the time constraint, we have to stop here. So I'm going to pass it back to Chen-Xi. Okay, Chen-Xi, could you take over?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Monica. Jonathan has already introduced Ms. Monica Zhang as the Senior Director of Strategy and of Virgin Orbit, but we haven't got a chance to introduce Dr. Jonathan Zhang himself. He is the Principal Scientist of Engineering and Science Directorate at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Everybody got so excited in the Zoom chat. If your question has not been answered in the chat box, please stay till the end and you will see the WeChat group chat QR code there. You can scan the QR code and join the group chat, and we can continue our discussion there even after the meeting.
Okay, welcome.
Hongchen? Is she?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was a horizon broadening and inspiring presentation. Everybody got so excited in the Zoom chat, as you could see. And thank you, Monica and Jonathan, for encouraging us human beings to continue exploring the universe that we live in, and like with your research, effort, and time. It's so inspiring to hear about your vision, and that was also being our ultimate dream. We cannot wait for the day that human can travel and explore the universe. Thank you for always encouraging us human beings to continue explore the universe with your research effort